like incredibly rude. I was just like, what? Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Before I get started, I do want to note that I am doing this with natural light, so that might change while I am filming. I'm also doing this next to a window, and even though we're all supposed to be staying home, there's a lot of cars going by. So for today's video, I will be changing all of the names of people and places, but I won't be changing the fact that this all took place in Rockford, where I am from. In 2011, I graduated with a degree in political science. That year I did a poetry slam, I did some open mics, and I really got a feel for how much I loved performing my poems on stage. My mom really wanted to support local businesses, and one of those local businesses was this really cute, small, locally owned coffee shop that had a weekly open mic. This one was really interesting because it wasn't advertised only to poets, but like the majority of people who performed there were poets. So I started going to this open mic every single week, and that's how I met a man by the name of Corey. November of 2011, a separate bakery and coffee shop, which I will call Defunct Bakery, they decided to host a poetry slam. In case you don't know, a poetry slam is a competition. A group of poets will compete against each other by reading their poems on stage, and judges from the audience will give each poet a score. Corey was hosting that poetry slam. So the day of the slam, I got there early to get a feel for the space, kind of like calm my nerves, and I was the first person to sign up. If you're the first poet of the night, you're probably not going to score that high because judges don't really have a feel for how to score things or what to expect. So they tend to go lower at the beginning, and then something called score creep happens. So throughout the night, you're more likely to get higher scores. When Corey goes to announce like the lineup for the first round of the slam, he calls my name first, and then he like reads off the sign up list. And I like raise my hand and I ask, I was like, oh, were you drawing names from a hat to like randomize the order, or are you just reading it off the sheet? He's like, yeah, I'm just reading it off the sheet. And I was like, oh, because I think it would be more fair if you did it like random draw. He didn't say anything. He ended up doing it randomly, and then the night goes on and I won first place. It was my first ever time getting a first place position at a poetry slam, and I was really excited. And the thing is that Corey, he like never shook my hand, he never congratulated me. He congratulated the second place guy and the third place guy, but not me. And I was just like, oh, okay. I ended up getting a message on Facebook from Corey. He suggested that like it wasn't fair that I didn't go first. He said,
it does not help when your mother barks as loud as you do at public events. We as artists have to earn who we are without others being involved.
And that is what made me really angry. Because yes, my mom was in the audience and she was cheering for me and all like, woo, and like clapping for me. But to insinuate that she was barking like a dog, that was like incredibly rude. I was just like, what? Here I was, I had just won my very first poetry slam, and this gentleman who, when hosting events, repeatedly talks about how he's been doing poetry since the late 90s when I was like in elementary school, he's here like insulting my mom. I was really angry because I was like, this is not how you treat someone. Like, I didn't do anything wrong to you. So I wrote a poem about it. I go to the open mic that Corey is hosting, and I read this poem that I wrote about him in front of his face. In the beginning, you can see me like crying and like struggling to breathe because I was having an anxiety attack. I didn't know what an anxiety attack was back then, but that's what was happening. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And I read this poem. It's called Better Ways. And I never said his name. I spun it to be about the fact that, like, I didn't know him, so I didn't understand why he was acting the way he was. But I also made it clear, like, I never volunteered to be anyone's punching bag. Like, if you're insecure for some reason, like, that's not my fault. I didn't do anything to you. And then he proceeded to block me on Facebook and on Twitter. And I have been blocked by Corey since 2011.
Hey everyone, I filmed this whole story time in one sitting, so editing it is taking forever, and I decided to break this up into multiple little stories for you so you don't have to sit through a really long video. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next part in this series on the Dylan Garcia Poetry channel.